Hey, I'm Rora.
I'm Jane.
And we are Birds of Clay.
And we're here to talk all things Australian pottery and ceramic art.
So put your kettle on.
And let's have a chat. We would like to pay our respects to the traditional custodians on the lands on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge the rich history of art, craft and storytelling that has been occurring for millennia, and acknowledge elders past, present and country as provider, protector and guide. Working with clay is intrinsically linked to country, and we would not be here without the care and connection that our First Nations peoples have shown for thousands of years on this continent we call Australia. Hi everyone, it's Jane here. Today we have a special live recording of the launch of issue 641 of the Journal of Australian Ceramics that happened in Adelaide last month. It was a fantastic day with a visit to the APY Studios where we heard from some of the Blak Manta artists, and we also visited ES Studios where we watched Guy Ringwood through. We then all headed off to the Wheaty where Montessa and I facilitated a great group of panellists to chat about the journal's themes of story and industry. Rora, the team at TACA and I really hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name's Diamando. I'm now running the Australian Ceramics Association, so we're here tonight for about the JAC launch. So this journal is about story and industry, so I thought I'd tell you all the story about how this has come to be, about why we're in Adelaide. So I started at this job a little bit over a year ago, and we were like, oh, it's time to find an assistant editor. We did a call out for editors, and then there was like 46 people applied. Amazing, the applications. And then Montessa came to me and she said, Di, I've got an idea. And I was like, let me know. She was like, how about, instead of it just giving it to one person, how about we have editors from different parts of the country that can actually work with me per journal, and then we can have more of a further outreach into the community, and we give more people an opportunity for a chance, you know? So she's been on this amazing mission making this happen, and this is the second journal where we're very lucky to have Alison that's joined us from Adelaide. So you'll see that this journal has like an Adelaide touch, a South Australian touch, you know, so it's actually been a phenomenal experience. So thank you for your brilliant ideas, you know, and also the work that we all do together to make this happen. So the Australian Ceramics Association's been around for 70 years this year, and we do amazing things, like we produce this journal, and we basically are the collectors of stories and information that we share through here. We share it through Touch Play Weekly, and we're here to sort of elevate and give opportunities for ceramic artists, whether it be through exhibitions or open studios, or could be about education, could be about training. So if you want to become a member, come along and join us. You know, I'm going to have the computer set up over there. The ones that aren't, we'll give you a free journal tonight of the Adelaide version. And, you know, come and join the party and celebrating ceramics. So I'm going to do it. Thank you all for coming.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Montessa. Thank you, Di. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you also to everyone from APY and Shane and Guy. It's great to be here this afternoon on unceded Kaurna Land. Beautiful place. The journal is about community. We try and make it a gathering place for stories and, kind of a common place where we can connect together. And it is for community and completely enabled because of community. Di didn't really go into it, but the association is very grassroots, and we thank you all for your interest in the journal. we don't have any funding, so we kind of bring it all together with amazing people, and that's why we're here. Part of why we're here tonight. And Alison worked beautifully with me on this issue. Alison, do you want to talk a little bit about anything?
Sure. I guess I'll just talk to the experience of being an assistant editor and working with Montessa in particular, who was the most patient and kind, supportive person who works incredibly hard and cares deeply about the stories that people are trusting us with and with people's voices. I really enjoyed having conversations with Montessa about just the nuance of people's stories and trying to respect their words, but also keep them to a word count, which is really challenging at times, but so interesting as a process. And so learning how to be part of that was a real privilege, and also being able to write for the journal was also a really exciting process, and to just make suggestions off the fly and then have them turn into a printed format was actually incredibly exciting. So, yeah, thank you, Montessa.
For people who haven't read the journal, there's a very really extensive article on Bennett's that Alison researched and wrote in this issue. It's a very good read. Jane?
Not as young as I used to be.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane. I'm from Toowoomba, which is Jagera Waka Waka country, and I am the upcoming assistant editor. So I'm in the footsteps of Alison and on the upcoming issue. Letting you know we're also recording this today, and hopefully in the future it may become a publicly available recording. We'll see how the sounds. But yes, the sound sounds. We've got good English.
Everyone stay close to the microphone.
She's an editor.
This, not this. But look, we've got a wonderful lot of panellists here tonight, so could everyone give them a round of applause to welcome them? Excellent. And I know you don't want to hear much from me, so we might get each panellist just to introduce themselves and tell a little story about their life with clay.
Do I have to start?
Yes!
I thought it was going to start over there. All right, hey, I've got this written down so I don't forget anything. Singer. Not a good
And a
voice.
1 and a 2.
So I started my ceramics journey at South Australian School of Art. Jo was one of my lecturers, so it kind of feels very full circle to be up here with Jo. And I was with Alison at Jam Factory and other places. Anyway, I did honours, and that really sort of broke ceramics for me. And from that, I sort of figured out that I wanted to do it as a living, and everything I've done, many hurdles to jump, but eventually gotten there. Now I produce a lot of tableware for restaurants around Adelaide, teach up at Harndorf Academy, got my own studio in Torrensville, not too far away from here, and yeah, just being a potter.
And you throw big pots.
Throw big pots apparently.
Super. Oh, okay. I'm going next apparently. So you know my name, obviously. So I came to ceramics a little bit later in life. I didn't sort of do the straight from high school into art school thing, but I was 35, decided to come to art school and refound clay. My mother was a high school art teacher, who actually taught Jo. But when I found clay, it really felt like coming home, and I've been a drawer of characters, and then that now translates into my ceramic work, which I will do anything to keep being able to do. So I always, of course, like all of us, I think probably have to do some sort of day job. But it is mostly to support my habit of being able to make. So it's very important to me to do. That's it.
Hi, my name's Jo Crawford, and it's true. Alison's mother actually taught me in year 12, and I was doing a rather large clay piece. But I decided that I was going to study sculpture. I had a go at that, sculpture and photography, but then I started to see what they were doing in the next, just over the wall, and changed courses and went back to ceramics. From that course, I went and worked with a studio potter, and that was a real education. Seeing someone earning their living from making production. I applied to the jam factory with the idea that I would also, pick up some of those skills. I came into contact with people like Philip Hart and John Allinger and Jerry Wedd, Peter Johnson, and eventually when we left the jam, we developed a group workshop called Jamboree, which went on for a decade or so, and that was a fantastic place. And I think, the group workshop situation is a great way to keep learning.
I know, it's rude, but hey.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy. I'm doing good teaching now.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
I get to skip mine.
No, you do. I need to speak up too.
Oh, okay. Hi. Into the microphone.
Yes, please.
Hi everybody, I'm Dee. I am part of the editorial team for JAC. My story started as a very small person. My dad dug a hole. Let's just say it was for a fence post, and then put me in it. And so I think the die was cast. A life in mud was inevitable. Sorry. Fell into clay in the early noughties, and for 20 odd years I've roamed about COFA, Sydney College, Jam Factory for a minute, gorgeous Mr. Hart, went to Alfred, did all the things. I've also over the years worked in various capacities with TACA, mostly just writing things, saying yes to everything, basically, because I love this community. And in 2013, I ditched the big smoke, something like take this job and shove it, and started my own school in beautiful La Truida, Tasmania. So, come visit. It's nice in winter.
Thanks, everyone.
Super.
All right, should we have a round of applause for the panelists?
Yeah.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Matt Russell, and I'm on the organising committee for the upcoming Triennale that's coming up in Western Australia. I'm from Perth or Bulu on Kaurna Land. Look, I came here, I got off the plane, and I said I'm happy to help out. I got put up on stage in these lovely pink shorts and given these things to read out, so and that's how I'll be helping out today. Look, I'm here with the TACA folks, and we're really excited to be here in Adelaide. My first time, and with our help and the spirit of the late great Don Dunstan, we'd like to celebrate some of the special things about this great state. And we'd like to get you guys all involved. So by now you've noticed you've got a little bit of a flyer, a little flag on your tables, each one of you guys. So I'll be reading out tonight a pottery fact, a South Australian pottery fact that you'll flash your cards to indicate how you feel about it. If you agree, we will hold up the each good side, and if we don't agree, it's the we don't like it. So we're going to do a bit of a test of that. So how does everyone feel about my shorts that I'm wearing right now? Hold up
Oh no, one day enough.
It's honest. We want to see that. We love it. All right, great. We've got the first one down. All right, so we're going to head into the first fact. So right around the time Don was enlivening the grey conservatism of South Australian Parliament, funk ceramics were finding an affinity with the social and artistic environment of Adelaide. Scandinavian funk was decorative, political, inventive, daggy, provocative, and as camp as these pink shorts I have on right now. In a pottery world dominated by Leachian traditions, the traditional and unorthodox approach to clay, adopted by icons such as Margaret Dodd, was, to quote Donald Brooke, as refreshing as a drought-breaking rain after an eon of cider jugs with bullock bodies in boiled oatmeal and orchard jars in sensitive toffee tamuku. My first proposition to you, in the spirit of Scandinavian funk, is that well and alive in Adelaide today? How do we feel about it? Do we feel like we still have it going on, or not so good? Let's have a little wait.
Oh, there's lots of neighbours going on.
Right, we'll just start to have a little discussion about it.
I'm not going first. I'm
Thank you so much. All right. So all 4 of our panelists are teachers. So the first topic is about how do we feel at the moment about people finding their voice or finding their way. Who wants to start?
In terms of that, irreverent kind of Adelaide quality, or just generally? That's a good place to start. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can decide.
Put my foot in it, haven't I? I think there's a range. There's definitely a range, as opposed to when that was kind of identified in Adelaide as a kind of group, like almost like a small group. But I think it's a lot more varied. You know, there's quite a few different approaches to people finding their voice, and I think it's there's lots of different strands coming through.
I wonder if because we were talking at the pub yesterday about what was the truism, Jane, that skilled and sloppy are not opposite.
Yeah.
And so in reading about Skangaroovian funk, there was this sense that it was actually incredibly well crafted. You know, it looked rough, but there was a finesse to it. And I think as a teacher, we're always straddling that you can do that better versus this is answering the question. I think so in finding your voice, Mr. Leach would say there was a particular way to do it, and certainly in a functional realm, Guy, you would speak to this really, there are good pots and there are shit pots. But when you're finding your own voice,
Perhaps to both can be true.
Yeah.
Also, there is something about the slightly shit pot that can be so endearing and so exciting, and we tend to sometimes let that go as our skills develop, which it can sometimes be a bit of a sad thing because things get tighter and tighter and tighter. Hanging on to that can be, a lovely thing.
Yeah.
Do you have to get tight to get loose?
I think so.
I think it's a little bit like, learning how to draw and draft and then doing something with it. And I think that, what you mentioned about, that Skangaroovian or the funk is that that attention to detail, I think, was sometimes mistaken for a lack of attention or a lack of intention in the work, and it certainly wasn't.
It's hard to make a car out of clay as well.
My sort of comment here would be around building those fundamentals. So one of the things I do when I'm teaching, and I've worked on extensively while I've been making pots, is working on just being able to centre well, and from that, you get those fundamentals, you can go anywhere. And that's where you can lean into the Skangaroovian funk or wherever you want to go. If you have the craftsmanship, I suppose, away you go.
I was really taken by the comment by, I'm not sure her name, at the APY Studios today, speaking about the kind of courage of makers who haven't had a formal education, and that sense of like, go on then, so, yeah. But then I also remember Glenn Barclay at maybe the Tasmanian Triennale saying that, he cultivated that unskilled approach, but the more you practice, your skills get better anyway, it's like unavoidable effective practice.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Cool, right?
Yeah.
Are we moving too fast?
Can we invite the audience to to wave your flags at us or you know, I don't know. Jump in.
So I think we have Matt again.
Yeah.
Fun fact 2. Oh,
Yeah.
we need to, no, you're not allowed that microphone.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're moving on to number 2. So the second fact, as we've established, the 70s were a big time in Adelaide. I'm guessing everyone here knows about the Jam Factory. Put your things up if you know Jam Factory. We're there today for the first time. Yeah, no. Since the Jam Factory's establishment at Don's behest in 1973, as you might have guessed, an old jam factory, the pottery studio has fostered many great names in Australian ceramics.
Several of whom are here today.
Yes. In the noughties, under the leadership of Stephen Bowers, the jam production range included immensely popular Anamuka ware. Associates at the time recall being shut out of the studio of an evening while Stephen applied his trademark marbling decorations to bowls and mugs. So, what do we think? Do we think it's totally legit to keep secrets secret? What do we think about that one? Do we keep them secret? Should they be shared? Advice here.
Excellent. So,
You got heaps good, Phil.
so panelists, sharing, gatekeeping. What do we share? What do we hold back? How do we feel about this?
I could jump in on this. I'm excited about this topic. I have a slightly different sort of, I have another voice in my life. My partner is an industrial designer, and intellectual property in terms of technology development and that sort of thing is often shared in other disciplines in a really open way. That seems to be maybe a bit more of a contemporary idea of sharing information freely, things being freely available. And I think that that is something that actually helps us all become better. And I feel really quite passionately about it. And it is one of the reasons why teaching has been important to me, because sharing skills is how we all learn. And I've learned things from people who are just developing processes in really clunky ways. You can look at it and go, oh, yes, I'm going to take that home. I'm going to do that.
Well, isn't that the nice thing about teaching? You're constantly learning.
Yeah.
Like people are doing something wacky and you're like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, didn't know about that. Yeah.
In the current journal, there's an article that suggests that in the Australian ceramic scene, there's a tendency to withhold that sharing as compared to the writer's experience in the States. What do you think about it?
Should we let's send that to the room. Is gatekeeping an issue in Australian ceramics? Yeah. Nah? Heaps good. I mean, how do we do that? Heaps good means yes, there is gatekeeping. Do we know what that means? That means like people are close to sharing their practice who are experienced. So do we think that there is a problem in Australian ceramics? Maybe not.
Yeah, no?
Yeah, no. Awesome.
I think with social media, there's like an inherent sharing as well that's happening. Like, I'm sure we all have a love-hate relationship with social media, but there's a lot of sharing that happens there, and I guess that can be international too. So it's not so like insular, as in you only have access to the people in your community. It's quite available now, which is nice. Yeah.
I have to agree with you, Karen. I think it's changed.
Yeah.
I remember when I was going through my first phases of getting to where I am now, it was a lot more difficult to get knowledge. But obviously with the onset of Instagram and YouTube and certain people on those formats and the amount of knowledge that they are pushing out, there, the gatekeeping isn't so much there, but maybe there's gatekeeping with other things like that is necessary. And we brought this up.
Opportunity.
Well, yeah, opportunity and like just, I think maybe there are little secrets that we all have.
Well, I spent 10 years developing that glaze.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of fair. Like, there's, and to come back to the voice thing that we were just talking about, that is part of like having some pushback, and this will come up in the next topic, I think. Having some pushback is how you Yeah.
I think you can be really quite generous with demystifying a process, but you can't hand it over completely to anyone. I don't think. I think that people need to take that and work with it before it becomes their particular language and their particular take on that. So,
I guess that links in with finding your voice.
Yeah. And I think Paul Scott's print book is a really good example of, and I've had students say, I followed their instructions, but, it didn't work. And I said, well, you just have to keep going back and fine-tuning. You just, like they've given you a framework and, but it's not like, here, do step 1, 2.
They're just not as punchy when I make them.
Yeah, that's right. Different oven.
Yeah.
Maybe some of you have all had the experiences where, someone's run a workshop and then suddenly there's a proliferation of a sort of style.
Yeah.
But I think it must wash out somewhere. You can't keep, even though maybe the first things you make on the back of that workshop will look just like the teachers, then maybe it washes out after a while as you kind of get your hands into it and
find your own voice.
Yeah.
I think that happens when you travel and do residencies as well. I think you can't help but be absorbing some of that flavour, and then you come back to your own studio and sort of hang on, who am I again as a maker? So you have to process that technique or whatever it is.
Time.
Yeah.
Is it, as a teacher, I always think a lot about, one of the things I'm quite proud of is that none of my students' work looks anything like mine, except feet. Feet are essential, and it's the one thing, and I think the students that stay with me long enough, they'll do the feet, and then they'll go, no, these are my feet now. Do you know? Even that.
You're talking about dance steps.
Step will change. So maybe there's something that we are responsible for as teachers as well, which is here's how I do it. Now you try that and then figure it out.
Yes,
Is
not
that-
the way, but the
Is that
way.
influence? You have crucial people in your pottery journey or ceramics journey, and you absorb things from them, and that's you put your little twist on it, and there's a influence there, and
And think without even realising you gravitate or you reject things. They kind of find some fertile ground in terms of how you're making, even if it's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
Great.
We're on time.
we're going too fast.
Go like the clappers. You should all jump in. I don't know.
We can have questions.
I loved what Alison you said about when you're back in the studio and you're just kind of facing yourself.
Who even am I?
Yes. Does anyone in the audience have a particular experience that relates to this? That's brave enough to answer.
I really think that there's a bit of a context to the gatekeeping. I feel like there's a lot of young potters that pop up and they haven't gone through any sort of education system. And they're rocking up to our studios and they're like, oh, how did you do this? Or how did you do that? And I'm like, well, you could come to my class, but then as a potter that has peers, I've got people that I reach out to and I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing that's completely different to me. Where should I start? And it's about having those mutual respect relationships within your industry and those people you reach out to and kind of knowing which things are something that you can just ask without an exchange of something that, there's kind of like a balance in there, I think.
I wonder if your comment earlier about social media, there's that knowledge sharing has become quite extractivist. So when you're part of a community and you're living and working with people, it's sharing. But I think we've all had that experience of someone lobbing up and going, oh, give me that recipe, tell me how to do that.
Yes.
And then
that feeling of being sucked.
So that transactional.
And why didn't this work? Yeah, I did what you said.
It's a different oven.
It's a different oven.
Alright. Moving on to number 3. So let's go back now to the early 1900s. Gladys Raynham was one of South Australia's earliest studio potters, known for her bold modernist style.
Who knows Gladys?
Gladys?
Come on, Gladys Ronell.
Yay!
Yes.
Well
Sorry, Don.
done. She had a preference for working with local clays and was ahead of her time. In 1907, Miss Raynell studied painting with Margaret Preston. Who knows Margaret Preston? Those of you familiar with her work might see some similarities in the bold linear decorations, Gladys' graffito and Margaret's lino cuts. According to Wikipedia, they became close friends in 1912 and they travelled to Paris together. So I'd like to see a show of hands who thinks that they were just friends. Just friends?
Yeah, no!
They were very good friends.
Oh, that's my pet rumour.
So our third topic is to do with mentoring and informal education, which we've sort of started touching on with kind of the medias.
With good friends or otherwise.
In any of the ways. Would someone like to start? How do you feel? How are we feeling about informal learning, formal learning? Where is mentoring at the moment in Australia or in South Australia?
Well, there's been a real broadening of access to information, and by that also means a type of education which is alternative to art school, TAFEs, learning from an apprenticeship from a potter. There are many different ways of learning now, which is exciting. But as someone who has come through formal education, there is also a terrifying element to seeing people posting things on social media and, frolicking in dust and, splashing cobalt around and drinking coffee and, just the things, right? Just the formal things that you learn from, someone like this who knows how to, from the beginning, show someone how to make safely. And
Be safe, yeah.
yeah, and so I don't know where that ends up. I guess that broadening is exciting. It's very exciting to me because I think that people who come from adjacent disciplines are also making, and I think that's fantastic. I love seeing painters start working with clay. I think that's really exciting when that happens, and so I'd love to see more of that type of exchange. I'd love to learn painting from a painter, I'd love that.
It feels very one-sided at the moment.
It kind of does.
Let me paint on your pots.
Yeah. Let it out, Dee.
Shy.
So, I have a working relationship with my partner, which is one of those relationships that we're talking about. And I've learned a lot about
good friends.
We're more than good friends. But after spending 30 years with someone, you can really trust your creative mind and heart with them, and so that exchange of information has been really important in revitalising my practice and understanding my own decisions in making as well. And so those informal ways of exchanging knowledge is really can be really powerful, I guess.
I think also just assuming that you're going to learn everything in a formal education is a furphy.
Yeah.
Seeing two different people go through those situations, it's a completely different experience. And I think likewise, sort of learning other ways can be a very individual journey. I think it's really hard to kind of put a particular frame on, you know, what the outcome's going to be.
I always find people's expectations the biggest challenges with
Managing their expectations.
Yeah, well,
And you
like
make it
with
fall and they come
mentoring,
back.
teaching them, and they walk in, you're having 2 hours on the wheel, and they walk in and I'm going to throw a ball. And, yeah, okay.
I think about mentoring, you know, going back to that, like, kind of the question of gatekeeping or sharing, and like, I've had a quite haphazard training in ceramic arts, but what that has meant is that everywhere I've gone, I've learned a new trick or something different, you know, like, and so certainly when I was teaching at Sydney Uni, I would definitely encourage the undergrads to go somewhere else for their postgrad work. You know, you don't want to be like just sitting in the institution within your comfort place, you know, like go somewhere, do something else, meet some new people. You know, and we were lucky enough to have Kirsten in Tasmania recently, and the castanets. What do you call them? Yeah, anyway, you know, and so when I was at the Jam, I learned about using
The punctuals on your fingers, yeah.
I call them castanets.
Yeah.
Sure.
For glazing, do you know? And it's like everywhere you go, you add another little thing to your toolkit, you know, and that's like technical, but that's also aesthetic, you know. And so you might not ever get lucky enough to have one mentor, but if you travel with an open kind of spirit to learning, do you know? And that, I think, as a teacher, the prerequisite for coming to my studio is that you were there to learn. You were not there to pump out stuff for production. We're not there yet, we're learning, do you know? And like being in that mindset of, oh, cool, what's going to happen if, you know, I think is so important. And that feeds back into finding your own voice, you know, because, you know, if your teacher's saying, do this, you could try that, but something might happen along the way. You know? Does that seem?
Yeah. That fits in with the gatekeeping as well, with just instead of shielding someone from something, you're saying you're coming here to learn.
Yeah.
Right? So you go, okay, you might want to learn about this, but like, let's learn about this, and there's always adjacent things. Yeah. So let's broaden that out, and then it comes into voice, and from there you can start going down your pathway.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think formal mentorships can be incredibly valuable as well, like a funded formal mentorship. There's a really big place for that. I was lucky enough to have that early on in my development, and I may not have learned everything from technical skills from that experience, but what I have learned is other things that go into all the other ingredients that go into developing a practice, which is a whole other set of learnings. It's not just about how you do something, but you know, how do you conduct yourself with others? How do you know, what is the value in travel? What is the value in this?
What is your grit?
Yeah, exactly. And how do you promote yourself and all those sorts of things, which you know, I learned through a formal mentorship, which was really, really powerful for me at that time. It's really exciting. It's a relationship that continues today.
That's really quite interesting. Like, I'm just reflecting on my time at uni with Jo and Kirsten, the things that I learned from there. And we're also talking about seeing, you know, not so great pots on the internet now as well, and you know, from the things that I learned at uni, sort of like what is the right, you know, the way to present yourself, the way to present the work, and not saying that you can't break those boundaries, but yeah.
How do you see
things you might consider?
Yes.
I also wonder about that, like you were talking about a trusting relationship, like having someone in your life who can go, you know, that shit, put it in the reclaim and do it again. You know? Like
there's power in that.
having someone that you can trust.
You have to keep everything.
I think that goes.
No, kill those darlings.
Yeah, and it's great.
Seriously.
I have a thing that I teach my students, which is the 600 gram exercise.
And cut them in half.
10 600 gram, make them throw, cut them in half.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping anything today.
Yeah. Who's done that? Who in the room? Yeah, no? Yeah, he's good.
Who's found it?
What's that?
Phil Hart over there. You're not keeping a thing.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we could be like, for your whole first year of potting, don't keep any. Or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like just,
keep your first piece.
your first one ever?
Yeah. You better keep that.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
It's also really good to show students when you're teaching to say that's something I've learned recently.
Yeah.
Is that first plot and they're like, oh, you were there where I am too.
Yeah, that's
Because you can see the glossy pictures, you see the ones that have been edited, everything's been edited out. But I just wonder, in terms of mentorship, actually what you said about having that network, and I think it relates to you too, Alison, that in some ways your peers are kind of like a sideways mentor in that they have an understanding of your practice and can give you an honest kind of, if you ask directly, but even indirectly in terms of discussions about works, can be really, really valuable. And so I think also developing your peer group, actually finding some community that you can bounce off some of those developments and ideas and get a bit of feedback is fantastic.
Do you think that there's sort of this historical culture of master potters? Do you think that is actually coming to a close and there'll be a more egalitarian sense of where people are at?
When people change, maybe.
when we smash the patriarchy.
But it's interesting because it's, well, if there's a greater acceptance of various levels of skill and expression, then perhaps the traditional notion of a master potter changes as well.
Yeah, maybe it becomes the mentor, not the master.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's hopefully where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot healthier term.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something about paying your dues though.
Yes.
Do you know? Like, so if we take that master apprentice model, I was trained in the Japanese tradition, so you wash buckets for a year or whatever. Not in Japan, I just had Australian teachers who thought they were Japanese and they should wash their buckets. But I wonder if there is something about, I know how to run a pottery because I've been in a lot of potteries. Do you know? I put in the groundwork with a view to learning, do you know? And in that learning there is a contribution, which is back to what you say about like it's an exchange, not an extraction, do you know? Like, even something like just at the moment we're about to tidy up all the kiln props, you know, like brick saw, bat wash. That is like, where do you learn that if you're not in a pottery doing the things?
Like less formal but still formal?
Yeah.
Like, it seems, there's always been the talk of the master and the apprentice, but I'm not sure if there's an apprentice scheme for pottery in Australia at the moment, so there's that. And so it does really become that informal version of something formal. So yeah, you're talking about the exchange. Yes, it's very much. And you mentor someone who probably has approached you, and
And certainly I work alongside like I've washed a lot of buckets.
We're all still watching lots of buckets.
It never ends. But also these are things potters hoard. Yeah. Have you noticed?
oh yeah,
Oh, that's a good bucket. Oh, it's but I also work alongside them. It's not like, all right, you go and do the thing. It's like, we're gonna do this together. You
So
know,
the dynamic can shift and still be that exchange.
Yeah, at the back.
Out of interest from teachers such as yourself, is there a way that you recommend for people to reach out for a mentorship? Because it does sound like it's a very vulnerable thing to form that relationship, and to a degree, you can't just keep paying for every class to go in hopes of just that last little minute of, hey, are you open to a mentorship?
That's a great question.
I would say just reach out. there's no harm. I think we're all pretty friendly.
Maybe ask if you can clean buckets.
Have a conversation.
I think it also depends on your expectation, which is something that was raised before. You know, what is your expectation of mentorship? And you know, hopefully it's more than washing buckets. Is not necessarily what you're aiming for, but I guess negotiating what and how could have lots of different profiles.
I think a lot of workshops are based around the process and then resulting in something for sale. We live in a capitalist society, everything is for sale. So it does feel like that if you are unable to sort of, I don't know, taking the next step of creating for yourself and creating with those influences as opposed to just creating to sell. So I don't know where my question went there.
I think
Fair comment.
I think that you know, there is we see the thing on in like social media all the time, pay artists, and so established artists also need and deserve to be paid for their knowledge and their skill. And so I think when you're approaching someone who's an established or a mid-career artist, you really should have something in it for them, and not just to sweeten the deal, but because it is a mark of respect to say, I'm seeking funding, I would like to seek funding, would you be interested? Yeah. What do you think this relationship, what you would like to see out of that in a monetary sense as well? I think that's important. Artists work hard and they deserve to be paid. And so that's my 2 cents.
I was also thinking in response to that, like, speaking close to my heart, read the capitalist sort of paradigm, and the sooner we can dismantle that along with patriarchy, thanks Georgie, the better. But I wonder about, and this came up when we were talking yesterday about studios as a third place, do you know? And so and this is kind of maybe a little sideways, but if you're interested in learning and interested in being part of a community, kind of pottery is a little bit like the gateway drug, do you know? Like it's, we all, if we're lucky, have a community around us, and that place, like going to ES, you know, there's the coffee machine, there's the vibe, you know, the people are, and that in an increasingly individualistic and kind of capitalistic hustle culture. So maybe that opportunity to learn skills alongside participating in kind of a community that is a space where, do you know, like, and look, I've got all the great examples, but I'm thinking about stacking firewood alongside washing buckets. Do you know, like it's not.
Is that a promotion?
Come to Tassie in winter.
That's after 1 year.
Yeah. Then you get to stack the firewood. But does that, I don't know, how do people feel about like how many people here are connected to a kind of community of potters in that kind of third space sense? Like,
Shane, I feel like going to ES yesterday and today, really, I was remarking to my girlfriend that it does have a community feel to it. Good props to you. This thing that's something maybe we've been craving a little bit in Adelaide.
You got a heap's good.
Heap's good.
Like that. It's like it would be nice if those were what's the word? Abundant.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for.
Blossoming.
Yeah.
But then maybe that comes back to what you're saying about pay the artists, because the people like Shane and is it Danielle? Yeah, who are holding up that space. That is fucking hard.
That is hard.
Yeah.
And it's risky. It's risky.
They're, you know,
Despite being told to pay themselves more, they still don't.
Okay.
Yeah, well that's not
Do you find that easy to do?
Pay yourself more.
I mean, it's tricky, and I think this kind of circles back to the start of the question where we talked about formal and informal education. As the formal education avenues sort of dry up and become more inaccessible, all of the potters start offering more and more things, and then how do we price each other? I mean, there are some things that I'd like to pay myself more on, but I know that if I did, other people wouldn't pay for the fee.
Okay.
That's why we need a pottery guild.
How do we? It's all a bit of a balancing act. You know, if you're working 7 days a week and you're still not really making a buck at the end, something's got to give, right?
Yeah. So how do we create kind of opportunities for exchange outside of that capitalist kind of imperative? Do you know, like, how do we value one another in ways, and, you know, how do we build those communities of mutual support? It's not just, you know, how many bums can I get on the seats for this particular course, because that will fund whatever. Yeah. So interesting. Mr. Pink Short.
Did you get the bell?
Oh, did you get the bell? That was embarrassing.
You're a professional.
Alright, so we're up to the last one. So everyone here has read the journal that's just been released.
Yes,
obviously,
sir.
we're all, you know, across everything in it. You know, again, if you haven't, there is an opportunity, like Diamando said, to sign up for TACA and get a copy. You know, once you've read the journal, you'll be well versed on the long and influential history of Bennett's Pottery, South Australian clay manufacturer par excellence. My last question and provocation to you all: Bennett's makes the best clay. What do we think about that? Yes? No?
It's good. Oh. Mixed turnips. Awesome, like reneging over here. Did you do a donkey vote this morning as well? Come on. Can tell me you've never used a Bennett's clay.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's heavy.
What's that? Big base, good for you.
And it's cheap.
Cheap and
It's cheap.
beautiful. It's cheap. It's not filter pressed. But that just means you have to wedge.
No, it's not that. Like, I wish.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so the journal issue, I'm just going to ignore the panel for a minute and keep things moving. So our wonderful journal, the themes, as we know, for this month was industry and story. And as we know, ceramics is filled with stories. Some get a lot of attention and a lot of air, but some are kind of quiet and hidden. So I want to ask the panel to share a ceramic story. It might be from Adelaide or it might be further abroad, that you feel needs to be brought to the light. Maybe it's someone or something that you think has really given our industry a lot, but it needs a bit of recognition.
Gladys and Margaret.
Yeah, we know Dee. Would anyone like to start? Go on, Jo.
Okay, I'm in this pretty dark, but I think of people like Alan Lewis, and hands up who knows Alan Lewis. Who has been rescued by Alan Lewis? So I feel like he's supported so many people, and it's not just, you know, the bang for the buck and whatever. He's also comes in and he will demystify a kiln. He did that for me back in the jam factory. He helped show me how I could change my whole in the elements in a kiln. So not only is he very skilled and knowledgeable and you know, and still available, which is amazing, working history, but he's very generous with that knowledge. And you know, I feel it's like panic that he's going to retire very soon, and that there's not someone that has that kind of perspective and generosity, and it's easy to take that for granted in the industry.
Who is going to take over?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Should we be getting some sort of amazing apprenticeship? Mentorship, yeah. And whining and dining.
Send someone down there.
Yeah.
I met a handsome man named Andrew. Are you in the room, Andrew? No. He's taking care of some kilns for some people, and I feel like it is that kind of, we just get lucky. Yeah, but how to share that information, keep it alive. I mean, just craft. Yeah.
And just on the subject of kilns and how enabling they are, I think another area in terms of we you know, as people that are practicing, or you know, the kiln It's integral, and also for emerging practitioners. That seems to be one of the kind of major stumbling blocks. And even though there's lots of studios around Adelaide, fantastic, communities and studio spaces, they don't always have a kiln. And so having that access when you're first leaving and being able to maybe move into a studio that has a kiln, that also has someone that can operate it and gradually kind of give you confidence in how to work it. Also gives you the knowledge to maybe pick up a kiln online. It's such a daunting task to begin with.
It's scary. And, am I going to burn my house down?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. Maybe take the kiln out of your kitchen.
Yeah.
Don't put it in your bedroom.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell my landlord I've got a kiln.
What was that? What should be the rhyme?
Oh, what's that? Gus has got a kiln.
Yeah. Okay, see, everyone's.
In terms of a industry story, I guess I told the industry story in the latest journal.
Pick it up now.
Is the story of Bennett's Pottery, and I think that plays into what Jo is talking about with Alan, and I think we have this as a continuing thread in businesses all around Australia. There was this time where a lot of these businesses were established and those people are now aging out of the workforce, and how do we then bring these new people into that and share the knowledge that someone like Alan has, or John Bennett. I mean, when you ask about a succession plan, it's a bit sad. I wonder what's going to happen to such a ongoing legacy, and so that's a story that I found important to tell, and yes, that's my story. You can read all about it.
When we spoke about this yesterday, my contribution here was about people that repair wheels.
Yes.
We've had such a huge influx of people interested in pottery that the price of wheels is extraordinary. Like an old Venco is
$1,000 for a Venco.
$700 for something. And around this, there are people that repair them, but it's that thing of there are people that used to have repaired them for a long time and they're starting to disappear. And who repairs the wheels now? Like, they're not things that need to be thrown out. Is that you putting your hand up, Shane?
But also, it's a Venco. You can be the guy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're going to bark your knuckles, and there's going to be swearing, but also.
So we need that online without the swearing.
It's not for my YouTube channel.
They're very Australian.
Like an oath.
With a hammer. Just bashing it into the wheel. Anyway, I just thought that was quite something. I have wheels at home that I've acquired, and they have their little stories of how they've made their way to me. I'd like to see them being used. So, yeah.
And they never die. It's great. It's like the landing process.
Exactly. That's the point.
So, Carlos, do you think... sorry, Dee.
My turn.
Yes, go. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to deviate from that entirely and speak to the academics in people like Jo, folks who have taught for many, many years in that formal education space, and then the people who continue to teach at a particular level. The untold stories of those humans is because they are devoting their life to education. The making happens after hours, on the weekend. Maybe there's a show coming and holy shit, we'll do everything right now, because the belief in and I have had several of those teachers in my career who put their teaching first and their practice had to sit somewhere alongside that, and I think about those teachers, the people holding studios together, whoever they are, they don't get the airtime because they're not promoting themselves, they're not making the work, you know, but they're looking after us and have, you know, that they are why we are here now. And I reckon everyone in the room has probably got at least one of those teachers that they can point to who has just not gotten nearly. Maybe we could do a journal article about, you know, all the folks whose blood, sweat and tears have taught us. And yeah, I don't know. Is there anyone in the room who knows one of those people? People are getting pointed to.
Yeah.
Now.
Thank you.
Usually women.
No, it's all good.
But I interrupted Jane as well.
No, that's okay.
I totally balked you.
I just had another prompt because I thought we were just going to start talking about fixing wheels.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay. It's a can of worms, so I might leave it.
Yeah. Get a hammer.
Hammer done. Sorry.
Hammer done.
All right, so that's the end of the kind of formal component. I have got some questions, but does anybody here have any questions or topics they want to raise for the panel? Don't be shy. I know it's really awkward, but it's worth it. Go. Yes.
Hi, I'm from Queensland. I'm a member of Pottery at Sherbo. So it's great to be here in Adelaide today. Just the way we run is funding. We're an Aboriginal Incorporated Association. Jane's been up there and mentored our potters, which was a fantastic experience. So just in terms of funding, I'm hearing a lot about mentoring and a lot about reaching out, and artists need to be paid. We know that time's valuable, skill's valuable. So in Adelaide, how does that work in terms of funding opportunities that perhaps are not just the sort of fly-by-night afternoon pottery event that, you know, Regional Arts Development Fund, love them, but for a bigger, more meaningful mentorship, what's the go with funding here?
We have an organisation in Adelaide called Guildhouse.
Yeah.
I know that they run some mentorship opportunities.
Okay.
That would be, if I was in that situation, that's where I would go.
We also have the opportunity through Create SA to set up those opportunities. Almost don't want to say that too loudly in case those things start to go away, but that is how.
And are they highly competitive?
Yeah, they sure are.
But I think Guildhouse has worked very hard to get sponsorship, and I think that's one organisation that's doing a lot, but that doesn't stop a group of people trying to find some source of funding that sits outside of government. You know, Guildhouse also get funding to run these programs.
Also Helpman Academy, that's very for emerging artists.
Yeah. That's the issue with that, is that it is attached to formal education.
Does South Australia have like a regional arts kind of element? Maybe not Adelaide itself, but the regional arts network is great for, like, I know in Tasmania we can get funding to bring artists to Tasmania. So
is it country art?
Country art. Okay, yeah. So, you know, you might get together and be like, let's get, you know, Phil over to do a thing, or, you know, it's not a longer term mentoring, but there's, you know, or, you know, we can like apply as a group to get funding to go to the Triennale in October. Stuff like that. Those regional things. Does Toowoomba count as regional?
Yeah. We are. Do you know the Gold Coast and Sunny Coast are regional too?
So is Adelaide, apparently.
Okay. So if you're anywhere other than Sydney or Melbourne, walk in.
But they also isn't there also an adopted potter scheme? Yeah.
Foster.
Yeah. Not adopt, I guess. That's the English one. Yeah. Is that something that people here would be interested?
What does it involve?
There's no one here from Foster or Pride, but it's worth looking up.
You can Google that shit.
Yeah, Google it. Yeah. And bit of a sideways note, but it's great to have Nicola here, and there's a very, really excellent article about Barama pottery in this issue. So it's very lovely that Nicola's here. And it's not very obvious, but the swing tag that's printed in that article is very interesting to have a close look at. Any other questions? We have an over here. Yes.
With the changing climate of homelessness and people not owning their own home, do you think that ceramics is changing in the way that people won't want to become a potter as a full-time, and it's just becoming like hobbies, but at the same time that's kind of educating the general public that have gone off and tried ceramics and then they come and buy your stuff because they know how hard it is to actually make it, and that people are starting to buy 3 really nicely made things than 100 IKEAs? Are you seeing that more and more? That there's like an arts crafts movement?
We had conversations about, I've said it before, the third place, and I find my space that aren't just in regards to that. So people aren't wanting to set up a home because it is too difficult and they don't own the property. So doing pottery is a matter of coming to a studio to do it. In terms of the buying things, don't really sit in that world, so I can't give you a good answer, but I do find that people will happily come and buy things at a market. Yeah.
It's interesting that you started that talking about homelessness. I had a conversation with a mob in Hobart, like at the pointy end of homelessness support, and they've got a space out the back. There's like a kitchen and other things, but at the end of the day, the people in that space have got way more bigger. Yeah, I'm an editor. Things to worry about than sort of pottery as a recreational pursuit. And I also wonder about, like, everyone's probably heard of empty bowls or something, that conversation started because we were talking about empty bowls, and I was like, how do we actually involve the people that's supporting rather than sort of generalised beneficence, I suppose. And the other thing I thought about when you were talking about homelessness is, like, women my age and older are the greatest risk for homelessness. Which is interesting because we are probably also a very large percentage of the Australian ceramics community. So it's really interesting. And this gets back to the capitalism question. It gets back to the how do people pay for courses? Do you know? Like, how do we interrupt that vicious cycle where the only way you can do anything nice and fun is if you're rich? Do you know? Like, how do we, without killing ourselves or offering our services for nothing, because like Alison says, we've worked so hard to get them. But, so how the more of us that are pushing at those edges and finding ways to, invite people in. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's, and then with the cost of living, like, I don't know, I can't pay $90 for a mug because I'm going to break it next week.
You can make one though.
Yeah, I know. Well, and this is, thank God potters like always we exchange our cups, because there's always plenty of cups but do you know, and this is, you mentioned that arts and crafts movement, anyone who's had a formal education in Australia will be able to speak to the William Morris experience, which was like, we don't need the machine made. But only the bougie twats could afford the handmade. Do you know? Like, so how do we... So, what? Tell me I'm wrong. So it is a really kind of naughty question. Yeah. But I think the more we are collectively poking at the edges of it, the better we have a chance of interrupting that, And, maybe the people who can afford to pay for it are paying more so that the people who can't
Pay it forward model.
Yeah, that sense of equity versus equality. Do you know, like, oh, I don't know.
That's complex, isn't it?
Yeah, let's smash the steak.
Does anyone do you want to answer that? Or we have another question, but we have another. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I think there was another question.
Question for you guys, but also kind of for the room. So I went into the art gallery the other day of South Australia, and the ceramic offering that they are selling is made in Japan. And when I say made in Japan, I'm not talking about someone made it in Japan. I'm talking about the brand made in Japan, where you can buy a bowl for $5 in Melbourne and they sell it for $20 here. Has any of you been in there and like tried to? I mean, I'm not good enough to like try and sell my wares in there. But has anyone else tried to?
I've sold work in there.
I spoke to the gallery manager, the art gallery there once in the shop. Gave her a bit of a harangue not having South Australian potters in there. She said because the people who shop there can't afford to pay for stuff that South Australian potters put in there.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, yeah, there'd be some who can, but for the most part, people will go there to buy a sticker or a bookmark. And if we're making a mug that we retail for $40, $60, whatever, they're selling it for twice that plus GST as the retail market usually is, then they're just not selling enough of it. Whereas the made in Japan stuff is at a price point that people can afford to pay.
Does the Art Gallery of South Australia have moral obligation to support the people that they represent?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Can we have a thanks good for that, everybody?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, vote as you're also.
It should be a policy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've had a lot of work for sale in the art gallery shop over the years, and it's had relative degrees of success, but it has tended to. There's been changes with the new shop managers, and then they've had different visions, and they've got to impose their own kind of vision on the shop and what's in it. So,
or different targets.
Yeah, but I'm sure if there was actually a policy or that it needs to sell South Australian made pottery, then that would be a really important thing.
Or a percentage of. Did they buy the work outright?
Some of it they did, and but it was usually on consignment. So mostly on consignment, but some they bought outright. It just depends who it was, really.
Yeah, it changed. It changed a couple of times.
Changed 3 or 4 times. Yeah. And at one point, I had all my work given back to me because they didn't want it, because they didn't think it was saleable. Yeah.
What if as a commitment to South Australian makers, the gallery were to, instead of putting 100% plus 10% markup on it, they went, you know what, we'll put a 30% on this and make it more saleable. Like who decided? When I worked in hospitality, not retail, so I don't know the answer to this. But when was the markup 100%? Why?
That's pretty common for retail.
I know, but why? Yeah. Who says?
It all comes back to because it's the norm now, so they can just do it.
Yeah, that's just what we. It's usual. But so maybe this is a way that gestures of support from institutions could exist. Of actually, this is important to our ethos.
Yeah. And the promotion of
I think Brisbane Gallery only sells Brisbane artists' work because I contacted them and they're like, sorry, we only do bronze. I respect that. Why doesn't South Australia do that?
That's for the handmade. There's a lot of stuff that isn't handmade.
Fair enough.
But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Any more questions? We did have one question submitted online, which is sort of on topic to do with pricing work and money. To honour that person, which I really appreciated, did engage with the terrible platform. Does anybody want to talk about money or pricing? Pricing work was really the question.
Just chipping in really in terms of, that proposition of making the work and then going through that dilemma of if this is marked up at 100%, and I think it is always a dilemma. It's not automatic, and I just wonder, you know, it can even be this: how many people would possibly lower their asking price with the knowledge that 100% will bring it to a certain level?
Yeah, nah. All right. It's worth what it's worth.
Yeah.
Well, I have been quite vocal about the fact that I no longer stock in any shop because I can't sell the work at that price.
Yeah,
and so
okay, so
I now sell
inadvertently.
only direct in my studio or on my website at a price that I think is a happy medium.
Yeah.
And it cuts me out of this other market, and I'm okay with that because it kind of suits the buyer. Yeah.
Shu and I have many discussions about this, and there are, like, I have a certain way that I price. I work a lot in restaurant land, so that's a whole nother kettle of fish. So I do price in a certain way for there. But if I was in a retail situation, I would be very much on the same boat as you and be wanting to control that. I don't know if that's answering the question that was proposed really, but I don't know if I really want to go into my spreadsheet. Am I gatekeeping?
Give us your spreadsheet.
No.
I wonder if it also
very organised, actually.
It does.
It's not.
I think it's a good point though, is that you can be very deliberate about pricing.
Yeah.
You don't have to be artsy-fartsy about it, like put your business head on.
A matter of
and know the details, know your
knowing
costs,
where it
all
might
that
be
stuff.
going, I think is really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, and an order of 100 pieces, you might be able to afford it to charge a bit less.
Yeah,
Because
it was a
you've got
wholesale
massive
price.
order,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
versus just making a one-off.
I wonder if there's something in there that's sort of a bit sideways. And I'm by no means a production potter. I make two things and I'm bored of that shape. But like, I personally love seeing people interact with the work in real time. Do you know, like, and so sending it somewhere to a shop with randoms, or, you know, it's like,
It feels cold.
yeah. Do you know, and it's like, you know, if part of the theme of today's story, if somebody comes to my pottery and they take home a funny little mug that has nothing else like it in the thing, but that mug has a story in it now. Do you know, like, I went to this place and I had this coffee and there was people shouting and it was great and there was a dog that nearly hit me, and do you know, like, you're like, these objects
I think that sounds dangerous. Yeah.
What's that?
Faulty sounds dangerous.
But it's a story, right?
Yeah.
And we're interrupting that cycle of disposability as well. Do you know, like, that thing now has, do you know, or if you buy it as a gift, you have a story to go with that gift or something.
Yeah.
So it's not just kind of keeping the price at a price that's yours. You're not paying the middleman, but you're also kind of participating in a different economy, which is not doable for everyone, not really an answer as such, but just something else to chew on sideways, maybe.
It's kind of what you're selling is the story as well. Like, because you can get a cheap mug that's pretty nice looking at Kmart these days, but it doesn't hold that story of the maker and that connection.
Yeah.
So I think we'll wrap up. There's a few. Well, Alison, did you have something you wanted to say? No. Sorry. Got that. No problem. Just putting everybody on the spot a little bit in wrapping up. Maybe one word that you would like for the future.
Mine's hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopeful.
I can't put smash the state into one word.
Can I use two words? I'm just saying community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that again, Jo.
Strength in the community.
Yeah. And I can't choose one word either, but Open minds and open hearts. That
Oh,
No.
Yeah.
that was 4.
It was 4. Sorry.
Great. So, thank you so much, Matt, for your fantastic work. Make sure everyone comes to the Triennale. Talk to Matt if you want to know more.
Does Matt want to say anything about
Triennale?
I guess thank you for the opportunity to have me here. It's been really great. And yeah, just come chat to me about the Triennale if you like. Happy to answer any questions or give you more information. Yeah.
Great. And thank you, Jo and Alison and Dee and Guy. We will hear from another Alison soon, but we're all going to wrap up and head to the beer garden. Please stay and talk to everyone.
Did you all make a new friend today?
Yes.
Yes.
And then thank you, everybody.
Thank you for TACA for coming, and Jo for coming to the Adelaide. I think it's been wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed. You can find us on Instagram at birdsofclay_podcast. Please feel free to send us any questions or comments. And if you could leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, that would be amazing. We'll see you next time.